Hello, welcome back to Ever17 out of Infinity.
さっきのは冗談でしたとか言わないでよね。
言わないよ。さっきのは本当のことだ。真実なんだ。たけしとココは今カプセルポットで眠ってる。でも絶対に二人を救出しないで。
どうしてよ。
I think I'm almost done.
それは
At least I hope I
そ
am.
れは
I cannot stand it any longer. I pushed away Hokuto's consciousness and jumped to the front. You have to wait for 17 years. I told her that before anything else. 17 years from now, I will reappear for you. I promise. Puckering out her lips, and you cocked her head to the side. Okay, just listen carefully to what I am going to tell you. I explained to her about the following. 17 years from now, I will reappear to you all. I just told you that, right? But in order for me to reappear, you will need to trick me. So what I'm asking you to do is trick me 17 years from now. Trick me into falsely believing that it is the year 2017 again. When that happens, I will still be the third eye Blinkwinkel, and that will cause me to reveal myself. And unless I reveal myself, neither Takeshi nor Coco will be saved. Because in order to restore life to Takeshi, who sank to the bottom of the ocean, I will need to appear as myself and go back to the year 2017. If I do not appear myself, Takeshi is going to rot at the bottom of the ocean. And if Takeshi fails to reach the laboratory, Coco will be left in the hallway. Both of them will die. Do you get it? So, no matter what happens, you need to stay away from IBF until 17 years from now. If you save Takeshi and Coco now, the events in 2034 will fail to take place. And if that happens, I will not appear. If I do not appear, then I will be unable to save Takeshi and Coco in 2017, which will form a time paradox and Takeshi and Coco will disappear. I'll repeat it again, okay? In order for me to appear in the year 2034, you must not rescue Takeshi and Coco now. I know it is painful, but that is the only way. And as for the way to trick me, well, how can I explain? You will need a bit of preparation, although it should not be too difficult. You certainly have enough time, 17 years actually, so it should not be impossible. I will tell you what to do. Are you ready? The day to act on the plan will be on Monday, May 1st, 2034. First, Sarah will be visiting Limu for a school event on that day. Sarah is Tsugumi's daughter, who will be born next January. She is actually a twin, and her twin brother's name is Hokuto. But due to unavoidable circumstances, Tsugumi, Sarah, and Hokuto will be separated. So you could probably just tell Tsugumi you will be reunited with your son and daughter at Limu. If you tell her that, Tsugumi will come to Limu for sure. Next, you can also invite Hokuto in the same way. If you tell him you will meet your mother and sister, he will also come alone. You must also have your daughter, Yubisei Akikana, work as Limu attendant just as you did. If you coach her, you could lead her in that direction, right? And you must not tell anything to Sora. It is best that you erase her memories of the incident in 2017. There is nothing to worry about because all the backup memories are saved in the terabyte disk. And finally, you will need the cooperation of young Kaburaki. 17 years from now, Kaburaki must look and act absolutely like Takeshi Kurenari. So he must begin training to look and act just like Takeshi. Do not worry, he will catch on in 17 years. These 6 people are required for the plan. All you have to do is simply throw them all together into Limu on May 1st, 2034, and have an accident similar to the one in 2017. If you can arrange this, things will work out by themselves. The time in question will be 1 week from the 1st to the 7th. For these 7 days, you must not interfere with them. No matter what kind of crisis happens, understood? They will survive by themselves. And should I show no sign of reappearing by 9 p.m. on the 6th, then I ask of you to rescue them all. Is that clear? Will you do what I just told you? You must not forget. On May 1st, 2034, you are going to trick me. Understood? Oh, wait, I mean, not me, to be exact. It's actually Hokuto. I want you to trick Hokuto. You must trick him so that he will believe it is the year 2017. 17 years from now, without remembering why, I might ask you something like, why have you called me here? Then I want you to answer this way. I only followed your directions. That is all. It was kind of lengthy, but do you understand? You got it right. I need you to understand this. Yubisei Harukana was surprisingly accepting. As if overwhelmed by my enthusiasm, she kept nodding her head, but I was still worried about whether she truly understood everything. Explaining to her again in more detail, I repeated the same words almost as if I were trying to hypnotize her. It took several more hours for her to precisely capture the whole picture. Hokuto and I made sure that she understood one last time, then we left her. The world in 2034 had returned to normal. Hokuto and I were still confronting Yubisei Harukana. She kept her mouth closed as if she had spoken about everything. Yubisei Akikana, stood next to her, also wordless. In the cold silence, I tried to reorganize in my mind what had happened so far and started wondering, why am I here? I found the answer easily. I have appeared because I was tricked by myself from the past. I mean, the mastermind behind the incident in 2034 was no one else other than myself. In 2017, I had told you to trick me, and therefore I appeared in the world in 2034, having been tricked by myself. Thanks to the strength of Hokuto's appeal, Takeshi had come back to life and saved Koku, helped her into the pod, and activated the cryogenic suspension. So, that was what happened. That moment when Hokuto had shouted out, "Dad," at the dark bottom of the ocean, everything had happened for the sake of that moment. It had taken 17 years going back in time in order to bring the dead back to life. That was everything. Coco and Takeshi were still sleeping 357 feet under the ocean, so I need to get there in order to save them. Before I realized it, I was already sprinting across the island. I ran on the grass and jumped into the deep brush. Dodging the branches, slicing through the wind, I ran like an arrow released. As I pumped my legs, I thought, how can I get to the bottom of the ocean? I cut through the woods as I was thinking. I sprinted over the curving arch of a bridge and reached the docks, the harbor for the floating island. I looked around and didn't see anything that resembled a mini-sub. As I tried to catch my breath, I walked around the docks. I noticed there were broken pieces of rock in the middle of the open area. All of the pieces scattered around were huge. They were as big as my whole body. The surface of the rocks had a refined smoothness. Looking closely, I found that some letters were carved on it. Where above sky, these were meaningless letters jumbled on the pieces of rock near me. There were letters on the other pieces. I put the pieces together and tried to guess the original sentence. It said, "Where is heaven?" Above the sky and at your feet. It's a stone monument. I whispered. The monument must have fallen down for some reason and had broken into pieces. Was it due to the tremor from the accident? Or had it been the passengers who, in a state of panic, had rushed towards the docks and knocked it over? I had no idea what the cause was. I picked up one of the smaller pieces. Oh, it's heavy. It was probably as heavy as Coco. And then a thought just hit me. If I jump into the ocean holding this piece of rock in my arms, before I had time to think it over, my feet were starting to move already. I ran hard towards the ocean. The moment I reached my maximum speed, I kicked off the ground with all my strength. My body flew into the air. In there, I jumped high over the fence. The blue water surface swayed below my eyes. I splashed into the ocean holding the heavy piece of stone. The letters on the piece said, "Heaven." Holding heaven tightly to my chest, I plummeted into the darkness. As I sank deeper and deeper, it felt as if I were running fast with the wind against my face. The seawater pressed hard on my eardrums. Unable to pop my ears because I held heaven in my arms, I simply endured the pain. Water pressure, incredibly high, squeezed my body. It felt as if my joints were about to snap into pieces. My chest felt as though it would be crushed. Deeper, deeper, deeper. The deeper I went, the more the water pressure rose. My lungs could not stand it. I decided to open my mouth. The air in my lungs came out and a large amount of water poured into them. I automatically gagged and started to choke. Even the cold seawater filled my windpipe. As my lungs filled up with water, I felt despair welling up inside of me. How far had I gone? I looked up and saw the water surface far above. I couldn't go back now. I looked below. I couldn't see anything. There was only the blue-black darkness. I couldn't see the bottom of the ocean yet. No matter how fast I sank, 357 feet was still very long. I went deeper and deeper, but scenery was unchanged. The darkness, 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 a world covered in darkness. It occurred to me that I might just be swallowed by some deep ocean trench and keep falling forever. I began to feel desperate. The only positive thing was that somehow the pain had disappeared. I felt that my conscious mind could still be clear, as the sense of pain had numbed. I realized that for the first time in my life. Hey, wait. To begin with, the body I was in belonged not to me, but to Hokuto. Thinking about that, I felt guilty. I need to return it in one piece. I couldn't see the bottom yet. My brain was running out of oxygen, and I started to lose consciousness. My limbs were numb. The numbness soon turned into spasms. Against my will, my limbs started to go wild. I almost dropped to heaven. I quickly pulled it close to me and held it tighter to my chest, going deeper, deeper, and deeper. I must have looked like a priest at an exorcism gone wrong, possessed by an evil spirit, my whole body twitching wildly. I hit a rock surface and it stopped going down. I burst forth from the water surface with great force. Putting my face above the pool, I started coughing hard, trying to expel all of the seawater in my lungs. I grabbed the rim of the pool. I took a deep, deep breath. I coughed hard as I was breathing in and chucked up a large amount of water. I repeated that a few times. I now really understood the suffering Takeshi had gone through. I crawled up weakly onto the floor. But there was no time to relax. I started running towards the examination room. It had been 17 years since I had last been here. I felt the heaviness of all the past years as I smelled the stale odor in the room. The paint on the capsule pod had partially peeled off, and the surface of it was rough and weathered. Manipulating the computer terminal, I checked on the status of the pods. Both Coco and Takeshi were safe. Under cryogenic suspension, their body temperatures had been kept at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, with their heart rates and breathing reduced to only a few times a minute. They seemed to be in good health. The cryogenic suspension device seemed to have worked properly without a single glitch. For 17 years, I deactivated the hibernation program for both of the pods. Finally. Coco and Takeshi were set to awaken at any time. First, I opened Coco's pod. Coco. 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 It's me, Coco. I came to save you. Yes. I kept my promise, didn't I? Coco rubbed her eyelids and blinked repeatedly. Coco jumped up and hugged me. Oh wait, was it actually Hokuto who she had hugged? Was it me, or was it Hokuto? Was it Hokuto who wasn't me, or was it me who wasn't Hokuto? I did not fully understand, but still, I hugged Coco tightly too. I know. I know. But you see, Coco, I'm not your brother, actually. Where is that written?
何にも書いてないの。ここだって決めちゃった。
Coco stepped away from me. Coco and I stared at each other as if we were drawn to each other.
おかしいな。お兄ちゃんに会ったらもっといっぱいいっぱいいろんなことをお話ししようと思ってたのに、なんでだろう。うまく言葉が出てこないや。でも一つだけ前に言いそびれちゃったこと、今言ってもいい？
Sure.
あのね、ココね、きっとびっくりすると思うけど、もしかしたら信じてもらえないかもしれないけど、ココはお兄ちゃんのこと好きになってしまったみたいなのです。
What? My heart skipped a few beats. Well, but I still,
17年間、ココはお兄ちゃんのこと待ってたんだよ。17年前からお兄ちゃんのこと知ってたんだよ。それにお兄ちゃんはずっとココのそばで見守ってくれてたじゃない。ココもずっとお兄ちゃんのことを見つめてたし。
it all started to make sense to me. Coco and I had been sharing the same time. I must have been sharing experiences with Coco through Takeshi's point of view. I had always been by Coco's side.
好きになっちゃダメかな。
I don't think so, really.
じゃあ決まり。
Okay.
今日からお兄ちゃんとココは恋人同士ね。
What? Before I got a chance to ask her back, Coco jumped into my arms again. Coco had regained all her strength. Maybe the antibody had kicked in while she was under cryogenic suspension. Whatever it was, I was relieved. My heart was filled with waves of happiness. It had taken me a while, but it was finally Takeshi's turn. I gave the body back over to Hokuto since I wanted them to have a family moment. Hokuto opened Takeshi's pod.
お父さん、お父さん、お父さん、起きてよ。パパ。
All of a sudden, Takeshi opened his eyes.
どこだ？ここは。
He looked around confused. Takeshi realized that Hokuto's face was in front of him and said,
お前は一体。僕だよ、お父さん。
Takeshi took a close look at Hokuto's face. He looked over Hokuto's whole body. He closed his eyes tightly and started banging his forehead with his palm. He opened his eyes and glared at the examination room wall. Then Takeshi gasped as if he realized something and looked at Hokuto again.
お前が北斗なのか？そうだよ、お父さん。お父さん、お父さん、会いたかったよ、お父さん。お父さん。
Raising his voice like a child, Hokuto rubbed his face against Takeshi's
ちょ
chest.
っと待ってくれ、北斗。
Takeshi pushed back Hokuto.
落ち着け。どう。
Takeshi tapped Hokuto on the back. Takeshi raised himself and stretched his legs outside the pod. Coco rushed at him. Coco hastily jumped at Takeshi and hugged him.
お、ココ。なんだ、すっかり元気になったみたいじゃないか。
痛いとこどこもないよ。
そうか。作戦は見事に成功したってわけだな。よかった。お父さん。
Hokuto jumped at Takeshi and hugged him just like Coco.
はい、ストッピング。
Takeshi forcefully peeled him away.
どうして？なんで拒絶するの？その質問に答える前に一つ聞きたいことがある。何？俺はどれぐらい眠ってたんだ？1日か2日か？まさか1週間ってことはないよな。 えその反応から察するに1週間以上なのか？1ヶ月？3ヶ月かな？嘘だろ？じゃあ何か？俺は夏を通り越して秋まで。
Hokuto and Coco closed their eyes and shook their heads.
今日は5月7日日曜日。
ゴールデンウィークの最終日だよ。なんだよ脅かしやがって。結局あれからまだ数時間しか経ってないってことか。
Hokuto and Coco looked at each other, nodded, and
お
said,
父さん驚かないでね。
落ち着いて聞いてほしいの。
実は
タケピョンが
眠ってた。
時間は
17年。
After a while, Yusei Harukana took a small submersible to pick us up at IBF pool. Inside the mini sub, she scolded
を
Hokuto.
抱えて海に潜るなんて正気の沙汰とは思えないわ。しかも水深119メートルの海に潜るなんて知らないの？この世界には潜水艇という素晴らしく安全な
Vessel called a submarine.
どうして一声かけてくれなかったの？あなたはバカ、生粋のバカ、史上最大級の大バカ野郎。まず間違いなく父親の遺伝ね。
She kept picking on Hokuto until they reached the surface. Hokuto must have been thinking, it wasn't really me who decided to jump into the ocean. The whole time, Takeshi still hadn't accepted the fact that he had been sleeping for 17 years. No matter how many times they tried to explain, he just wouldn't listen. Therefore, Takeshi still couldn't believe that Hokuto was truly his son. Under the bright sunlight, Takeshi, Coco, Hokuto, and Pee-Pee were hanging around.
おはようっていい言葉だよな。しっかり起きて頑張らなきゃなって気持ちになるんだ。
そうだね。じゃあここもおはようタケピョン。
ああ、おはようここ。じゃあ僕もおはようお父さん。おはよう息子。息子？そんなもん俺にはいないんだ。娘もいるよ。勝手に増やすなよ。じゃあ何か？俺はこの年で2児の父親だってのか？そうだよ。だってそうなんだからしょうがないじゃないか。ね、カカ。
ね、ホクタン。
Listening to their cheerful laughter, I thought to myself, I should be going back to where I came from. As I began to fade, I heard only their happy voices behind me.
タケピョン、タケピョン。
ん？
ここね、新しいお兄ちゃんができたんだ。
お兄ちゃん？
うん、お兄ちゃんでもあり、彼氏さんでもあるんだけど。
へえ、よかったじゃないか。ねえねえ、お父さんお父さん。だからお父さんって呼ぶな。じゃあパパ？パパもダメだ。なんでだよ、パパって呼べって言ったくせに。あれは口が滑っただけだ。
ねえねえ、タケピョン、タケピョン。
なんだ？
プップクプー、プップクプ
意味わかんねえよ。ねえお父さんお父さん。なんだよ。チワチワチワチワチワ。お前もか。どうしたピピ？遠吠えかよ。
ー。タケピヨ、タケピヨ。
呼び方変わってるし。
ココちゃんのショートコント。もしもココちゃんが怪獣だ
ちゃったよ。おじいちゃんの息子、おばあちゃんの息子。紛らわしい。北端のショートコント、もしも3年生になったら。3年生は最上級生なので忘れ物をしないように頑張りたいです。いつも分度器を忘れるので忘れないように頑張りたいです。作文だろそれは。頑張れよ、忘れんなよ。今度はなんだピピ。また遠吠えだこれ。
タケピョンタケピョン。
なんだ今度は。
イモムしたい。
してなさい、永遠にしてなさいね。うん。お父さんお母さん、両党になったの俺。思いつかねえなら呼ぶな。遠吠えだろどうせまた。あ、短くなった短くなった。なんかちょっとすげえ。
タケピョンタケピョン。
だからなんだよ。
プップクプープップクプー。
戻っちゃったよ。
I decided to leave as I was hearing their happy voices.
ちょっと待って、お兄ちゃん。
What?
またきっと会えるよね。絶対会えるの。必ず会えるの。ココ信じてるから。だってそうでしょ。ココとお兄ちゃんは太陽星人なんだから。超能力を使えるんだからね。だからお兄ちゃんも信じて。ココとお兄ちゃんの世界はしっかりと結ばれてるんだ。2つの世界が今は一つに。その結び目にあるのは視点。ココはいつまでもいつまでもお兄ちゃんと一緒だから。ほいじゃまたねお兄ちゃん。
Yes. Yes, you will. It's over. Oh. That was sweet. Now this is a timeline. Ow. Yay. Okay, May 7th, 2034. Time 11:17 a.m. Takeshi Kurinari. I was in the center of a world of blue, headed back to the mainland. There was nobody on the boat besides us. Me, Hokuto, Sugumi, Yubisei Harakana, Sora, Coco, Kawaraki, Chani, Pipi, and 2 girls called Yubisei Akikana Tanaka and Sarah Matsunaga. Altogether, 9 people and 2 animals. I swept a short distance away from everyone and leaned over the deck, going to look out at the expanse of ocean before me. The May sun sparkled on the ocean. Above, high above, stretched a clear blue sky. The fresh new sky looked so glossy and vivid that it might spill down to earth at any moment. It was all that was reflected in my eyes. The straight line of the horizon stretched into the distance, dividing the sea from the heavens. I murmured to myself. A solitary seagull traced a gentle arc in the sky as the wind carried it away. The wind, full of the smell of the ocean, gently blew by me. I felt as if I were dreaming. Everything that I saw in the scene before me was exactly as it had been 6 days earlier. 6 days earlier. For me, it had only been 6 days. Not even a week had passed. I got separated from my friends that day, and ended up waiting by myself for an elevator. But after surviving for 6 days, I had been stuck 17 years into the future, and... Yay. I found out that I had a 16-year-old daughter and son. It was a dream. Yeah, that's right. I must be dreaming. If I'm not dreaming, there's no way this could be happening. The girl called Sarah pulled up close to me. The girl was wearing a high school uniform. I'd never seen her before, but she suddenly pulled up close and pressed her cheek against my arm. Sarah stuck out a pendant with a mirror attached to it. On the mirror side, there was nothing. But... Saying this, I stroked her hair. Since I had come this far, I decided there was no reason to hold back. Besides, all of this was a dream. And if I had a daughter this cute, what did it matter anyway? There was no reason to resist the whole situation, and as I was thinking that...
答えないことにしたんだよ。
Sugumi Komachi.
俺は意味のない質問には答えないことにしたんだよ。
I could hear his words coming from a distance, the same words I used to say 17 years ago. In order to protect myself from the strong May sunshine, I had stayed inside the boat. I could see the three of them through the window. Takeshi was on the deck over by the railing talking to the two kids. I don't answer meaningless questions. Yes. That's why I always kept quiet whenever he had asked me something. There was so much I wanted to talk about. I wanted to tell him about every single day that had passed these long 17 years. But for the moment, watching him innocently playing with the children was enough for me. Everything that had happened up until that point was meaningless. He was there, right in front of me, and the two children were there. There was nothing more I could have hoped for. I had found happiness, was immersed in it, drowning in it, intoxicated by it. That was truly how I felt. It seemed to me that all the days filled with struggle and sadness had been for that day, that moment. Hokuto and Sarah were on both sides of him, and even when he tried to throw them off, they clung to him. I absently petted Chami, who was riding on my shoulder as I watched the scene before me. Him, Takeshi Kuronari.
だったら生きろ。生きている限り生きろ。大丈夫。俺は死なない。
After saying that, he jumped from our taxi. That stupid man. Stupid man. But he had kept his promise. So there was something I had to tell him. Going outside, wrapped in my 100% UV protective clothing, I walked over to where he was. For some reason, my legs were shaking and my heart was beating so hard it felt like it would burst. Being careful that he wouldn't notice the deep breaths I was taking, I went and stood in front of him.
Takeshi,
Suddenly, he pulled me close into his strong arms and solid chest. My body was wrapped in a heat which threatened to melt me, and for one moment my heart had stopped beating.
ただいま、つぐみ。遅くなって悪かった。
He whispered.
それにしても相変わらず可愛いな、お前。
やめてよ。
いや、だってあまりにも可愛いからさ。
どうしちゃったのよ、いきなり。
可愛すぎて食べちゃいたいくらいだ。
やだ。何よ、なんでそんなこと。
やっぱりお前はチャーミングだ。チャーミングだからチャミ。いい名前だな。
Yay. I forcefully pried myself away from Takeshi's chest. His eyes were leveled at my shoulder. I looked over to see what he was staring at. Chami was busy grooming himself with jerky movements using both of his front paws. Sarah Matsunaga. Huh. Mama let out a yell and turning around went back inside the boat, tail wagging. She moved unexpectedly, and Chami, who had been riding on her shoulder, lost his balance and fell to the deck. Dad went chasing after Mom. A series of frightful sounds ensued. I looked over on the other side of the window and could see Mama wildly brandishing the head of the costume she'd been wearing. She'd had on one of the lemur fox monkey costumes in order to stay out of the sun. I could see Father's back as he was desperately trying to calm Mother down. Hokuto and I looked at each other and started laughing. And Chami... He was calmly acting as if nothing had happened and just continued cleaning himself. I leaned down to put Chami in my palm and stood back up. Mom had already told me about this little hamster's ordeal. When I thought about how Chami had lived through the same circumstances we had, it made my heart warm. I could feel the beating of his tiny heart in my palm. His heartbeat was tiny but consistent. It goes without saying, but I thought to myself, Chami is living each moment to the fullest.
私たちこれからどうなっちゃうのかな。
どうなっちゃうって？
ライプリヒにまたライプリヒに捕まっちゃうんじゃ。大丈夫よサラ。心配しないで。
Someone was talking to us. Looking around, I saw...
先輩じゃなかった。田中先生、優美生春かなさんでしたよね。
Miss Tanaka nodded slightly. Hokuto asked Miss Tanaka.
大丈夫ってどういうことなの？
こういうことよ。
And saying that, she took out the newspaper that had been tucked into her pocket and handed it to my brother. He opened it up. I nestled up against his shoulder and looked at the front page headline. Lieblich Pharmaceutical, responsible for outbreak of Tiefblau virus. Compulsory investigation to begin in a day or two. It was learned that the Tiefblau virus, TB, which has ravaged the world since 2017, was manufactured by the Frankfurt-based pharmaceutical giant Lieblich Pharmaceutical. When a whistleblower from the Japanese-German Joint Managed Research Facility came forward earlier this week, spurred by these allegations, the Metropolitan Police Department is expected to open a criminal investigation that will focus on Lieblich's branch offices as well as related research facilities. Lieblich Pharmaceutical has for some time been conducting research and development of TB for the purpose of manufacturing a biological weapon. An outbreak of the virus is rumored to have occurred in their research facility around May 1st, 2017. Lieblich not only sought to cover up the accident, but also continued research into TB without the authorization of the Ministry of Health under conditions of extreme secrecy, according to the whistleblower. The location of the company's research institute has not yet been confirmed. Numerous other doubts involving Lieblich, including charges that it wrongfully detained citizens for the purpose of human experiments, have been raised and are to be investigated. In order to fully uncover the facts behind these allegations and reported incident, the Metropolitan Police Department is requesting cooperation from authorities in Germany, where Lieblich's head office is located.
ライフリヒ製薬の影響力は国家権力にまで深く浸透してるから。まあ、いろいろと根回しは大変だったんだけど。
Miss Tanaka took out an old marker and scratched it against her cheek.
ここに書いてある内部告発をした人っていうのは。
そう、私。本当はマスコミや警察にリークしたのはだいぶ前なんだけどね。でも裏でコソコソっと取引みたいなことをして今日5月7日になるまでは絶対に何があっても動かないでってそう言っといたの。パパとあのココちゃんっていう女の子を助けるために。そういうこと。じゃあもう私たち追いかけられずに済むんだ。自由になったんだ。だからもう何も心配しなくてもいいのよ。
Miss Tanaka smiled kindly. Just then.
心配しなくてもいい？何よそれ。よくそんなこと言えるよね。お母さん、誰に向かって言ってるのか分かってるの？マヨが今までどれほど辛い思いをしてきたのかお母さん考えたことあるの？ちょっとお母さん一緒に来て話があるの。
You would say Harakana Tanaka. And saying that, my daughter tugged firmly on my arm and led me over to a corner of the deck.
話って何？言わなくても分かってるでしょ。お母さんは2025年にレミューで働き始めた。第三視点を研究するために。本当の倉波武史とあのココっていう女の子を救うために。だったらどうしてなの？レミューで働いてたんならライプリヒの施設に監禁されてたマヨを助け出すことだってできたでしょ。つぐみと子供たちを会わせてあげることだってできたでしょ。なのにどうして？それは
It had to be done to save Takeshi and Coco. We didn't dare change history. Because I had made a promise to Blickwinkle in 2017.
何も教えてくれないのね。自分一人で勝手に何でも決めちゃって。でも この一件が起きる前に説明したところでユンはきっと信じてくれなかったでしょ。だからって騙すなんてひどいよ。今まで18年間私は騙され続けてきたんだよ。
Yes, I have. And there is nothing I can say to apologize.
嘘はつかないで、隠さないで、全部教えてほしいの。まだ私に言ってないことあるんでしょ。本当のお父さんのこと、お母さんのこと聞かせて、お願いだから。
I didn't hesitate. I told her about her father, Yuichi, and mother, Yuki. I told her the truth, all of it. May 6, 2017. Because Coco was sick, we had all headed to the IBF research lab. While Takeshi, the young Kaburaki, and Tsugumi were searching around the research facility, I stayed behind in the examination room. Coco and the researcher were lying in the capsule pods. The researcher, who was fighting to stay conscious as the virus consumed his body, told me this.
まさかこんなところで再会することになる。
That's right, he was my father, Yuichi Tanaka. As he was lying there in agony, he explained to me what had happened. 2000 AD. My father was a researcher on the Lemmy development project. One day, by accident, he discovered that Lieblich was developing the TB virus. TB is a potent virus which has an exceedingly high mortality rate, and Lieblich was planning to sell it to military buyers around the world. Father, whose sense of justice was stronger than anyone I have ever known, appealed to the company to stop development of the virus immediately. But of course they refused. That being the case, my father made up his mind. He hacked into the highly protected company database, collected evidence, and prepared to leak the information to the press. However, Lieblich found out before he could make his move and put him in a situation he could not escape. They threatened my father, telling him, "Should you escape from here, your wife and child will probably die in an unfortunate car accident." And to my mother, Yuki, Lieblich said, "Your husband is missing after a highly tragic accident. When making his rounds on the Lima premises, he slipped and fell into the ocean. We are doing everything we can to search the surrounding waters, but his remains still have not been located." My mother believed them. It was the summer of my first year. Time passed, and it was the year 2017. My father, who had been maintaining the computer system for IVF, was caught up in the TB outbreak. As all the researchers fled one by one, my father stayed in IBF because he was worried about me. My father knew I was working at Limu. And my father, right in front of my eyes. After enduring one disaster after another and gasping in pain while clawing at his throat, he struggled until the end to say, his last words.
この事故を発端としてティーフ・ブラウンウイルスは世界中に蔓延し猛威を振るうことになった。だけどライプリリス製薬はウイルスのことや研究所の存在自体も隠蔽し事件を完全に闇の中へと葬り去ってしまったの。
And the press only reported that it was a deadly virus of unknown origin. Even the experts had no idea where the disease really came from. However, the incubation period was very short, so even though the death rate was high, in many cases the carrier died before infecting others. So while the TB virus spread rapidly for a time, by 2019, 2 years after the accident, the pace and scale of the disease's destruction gradually waned. But that doesn't mean there weren't victims. The number of people that the virus killed is said to have reached several tens of thousands, and one of them was my mother, Yuki. It was 15 years ago that my mother caught TB and it robbed her of her life. My sadness, anger, and hatred all came together then. I swore that I would get revenge on Lieblich. I infiltrated Limu and at the same time started formulating a plan to rescue Takeshi and Coco, who were trapped in the research facility, and the person who helped me to do that was Ryogo Kaburaki. We have spent every moment for the last 17 years preparing for this. Yes, it was the only thing that I've lived for up until now. To make Lee would pay for taking my mother and father from me and to save my friends Takeshi and Coco. And in order to do that, we needed to discover the third eye, Blickwinkle. Without his help, there was nothing we could do. There was no other way that we, who were living in this dimension, could go back in time. That was how the whole plan had been set in motion, all toward May 1st, 2034. After finishing my explanation, I let out a big sigh. Biting on the nail of her thumb, my daughter looked up at the sky.
その顔やっぱり信じてくれてないじゃない。
She looked at me.
ああ、こんな話を信じろっていう方がどうかしてるのかもしれないけど、でも事実は事実だから。
I reached out to stroke her hair. She stared at me blankly, looking just like I did 17 years ago. Reckless, full of fire, pure to the point of being dangerous and unable to control her emotions. Her innocent eyes had seen none of the evil and corruption in this world. Looking into her eyes, I could read everything she was thinking. She wasn't mad, she wasn't unhappy. Just afraid to accept the truth. She didn't know how to handle it, and was scared and embarrassed by that fact. So I reached out and held her closely. There's no need for you to say anything. I thought this quietly to myself.
お母さんの言ってることは分かった。
She whispered this quietly in my ear.
でもね、どうしても一つだけ確かめておきたいことがあるの。何？私はお母さんにとってどんな存在なの？
I laughed without thinking and replied,
あなたは私のすべてよ。
Hibisei Akikana Tanaka.
あなたは私のすべてよ。
Mom said these words to me. I had wanted her to tell me, you are my daughter, but for some reason, it didn't bother me. Another voice inside my head murmured, shouldn't you be furious, and you should slap her across the face, but for some reason I couldn't get angry. I relaxed against my mother, who held me tightly, and I could only feel dizzy from her warmth. All of my normal reactions, such as lashing out like a wild animal, and my sudden mood swings, the warmth of her hug, took all of that away. Mom. When it came down to it, I still thought of her as my mother. There was an instinctive itch that transcended my basic reason. It was beyond my ability to control. In the end, no matter what anyone said, the woman in front of me was my mother. She wasn't much of a mother, but to me she was the only mother I had. And that's all there was to it. At that moment, it occurred to me I only differed from other people in the way that I was born. I had been told since I was a little girl that there are lots of things in this world that are hard to believe. In junior high and high school, all of my friends loved to talk about all kinds of strange things. Psychic phenomena, supernatural powers, UFOs, UMAs, super ancient civilizations, urban myths, curses, fortune-telling, miracles, mysteries. I thought I had dismissed all of these things as girlish fantasy. But something had now changed slightly. I mean, my existence itself was something hard to explain. If I thought about the fact that I myself, this girl called you, was somewhat of a mystic entity, then ectoplasm, cattle mutilations, Rip Van Winkle, the Lemurian civilization, all of these seemed like normal, everyday things. Even the third eye. And while those thoughts drifted through my head, my mother quietly went inside of the boat. Left by myself in the corner of the deck, I bashed in the lingering warmth that remained on my skin. The boat slowly rocked back and forth as I cut through the waves, the smell of the ocean quietly wafted by, carried by the sea breeze. Soon.
あ、ユウ、こんなとこにいたんだ。探したんだよ。
The kid, Hokuto, came walking over to me.
実はユウに相談したいことがあって。
相談？
Hokuto nodded deeply and said,
僕、大学に入ったら考古学を専攻しようと思ってるんだけど。
Hokuto.
僕、大学に入ったら考古学を専攻しようと思ってるんだけど。
I told to you what had been in my mind.
どうしてまた考古学なんか？
第三視点についてもっといろいろと勉強したいから。
You was silent. Huh? What, are you stupid? There's no such thing as the third eye. I thought for sure that she would come back with something like that, so I was caught off guard by her reply.
相談の内容は？
僕、 考古学を専攻することはもう決めたんだけど、でもそんなことを言いながらも実は考古学についてほとんど何も知らないわけで、だから差し当たってどんなことを予習しておくべきだとか、最適な入門書みたいなものはあるのかとか、そんな感じのアドバイスをしてもらえたらなーなんて思って。
アドバイスって言われてもね、私もまだ大学に入ったばっかりだし、授業って言ってもほとんどが環境だったりするわけだし。
環境？
一般教養科目のこと。考古学を専門的に勉強できるようになるのは3年になってからなの。
そうなんだ。
だから私に助言を求められても。あ、でも一つだけ。考古学はやめといた方がいいと思うよ。
え、どうして？
考古学って少年が思ってるよりもはるかに地味な学問なのよ。映画に出てくるようなインディアナ・ジェーンズの世界とは全くの別物。それにね、第三視点を本気で勉強したいんだったら哲学とか心理学とかそっちの方面に進んだ方が的確だと思う。考古学っていうのはそもそも人類史を研究する学問なんだから。
でもいいんだよ、もう決めちゃったんだもん。僕は人類史的な側面から第三視点についてアプローチしようと考えているわけで。
また小難しいこと言っちゃって。本当はただ単に私と同じ分野に進みたかっただけなんじゃないの？つまり少年は私に憧れちゃってると。
そうかもね。
I told her point blank how I felt, and it seemed like my reply caught her off guard.
ともかく僕が考古学を専攻することは運命的に半分決まっちゃってるようなものだし、しょうがないんだよ。
運命的？
別の歴史の流れの中では僕はそんな未来を歩むことになってるんだ。
は？
言うにはいくら説明したって分かってもらえないと思う。でも僕は確かに見たんだよ。その未来では僕とユウは付き合ってて。だからきっとこの歴史の中でも僕とユウは運命的に付き合うことになるんだと思う。
ちょっと待ってよ少年、勝手に決めないでよ。運命だかなんだか知らないけど、そういうことはお互いの承認と了解を得て初めて成立する関係でしょ。
そうだね。じゃあ今言うよ。
今？
優美生秋かなさん、僕と付き合ってください。なぜなら僕はあなたのことが大好きだから。
Ryogo Kabaraki. Because I'm crazy about you. It was 2017. I was still 15. I was stuck in Limu, in a total state of confusion, with no memory, and had even forgotten my name, Ryogo Kabaraki. I was 15 years old. All I wanted at that time was stability. Young as I was overcome with amnesia, and even doubts as to whether my existence would fade away. In the midst of my chaos, it was her innocent smile that helped thaw my frozen heart. I fell for her right away. All I had to do was see her smile, that's all it took, and my fear disappeared, blown away like leaves falling off a tree in autumn. Although I was still uncertain about who I was, her uniqueness helped me turn my eyes away from the turmoil inside of me to the world around me. Perhaps it was because of my uncertainty. I suppose that I might have been grasping for my identity through the love that I felt for her. It was an empty shell at that time. And falling into that void was her simple, pure smile, innocence, and her total lack of artifice. From that point on, for 6 days, she was in my thoughts constantly. I found myself looking at her all the time. I didn't have the courage to tell her, but it was enough for me to just see her. Just to see her. That's how fond I was of her. I loved her. Coco Yakami. And then May 6th, the fateful day arrived. I'd come down with TB, and when the rescue team found me, I had lost consciousness. By the time I found out that Coco had been left behind in the research facility, a few days had already passed. When Yubisei Harakana, told me what had happened, I was shocked. And at the same time, I thought, I've got to go save her. I didn't even wait for you to finish the rest of her story. I just ran outside. You caught up with me and started telling me about things about the third eye, the fourth dimension, the past and future, but none of it made sense. 17 years from now, you have to go back to Limu. You'll return as Takeshi Kurenari. Unless we can trick Blink, we'll wake him up and bring him to our world. We'll never save Coco and Takeshi. So please help me. That was what you had asked of me. It took a few more months for me to become fully convinced. All I wanted to do was save Coco. If she'd be alright, I didn't mind the danger. Even if I was despised, blamed, criticized, even ridiculed, none of that mattered to me. I just wanted to see Coco smile again. Still, there was Takeshi to consider as well. I respected him greatly. He was brave enough to sacrifice his life to save the woman that he loved. For a 15-year-old like me, Takeshi was a role model. I swore that I would save Coco and Takeshi no matter what it took. 17 years later. For 17 years, you and I had spent every minute, every second putting our plan in motion. Yes, I had lived for this day. Just 6 days. Coco and I had only spent 6 days together. But in those 17 years, not a moment went by that I didn't think about her. Because I love her. That was the only reason I had been able to fool everyone. My heart leaped. She was calling to me. I couldn't turn around. I stood there frozen, even forgetting to breathe. Coco rapped me on the head and peeked around at my face.
でも
もしかして翔ちゃんなんか気にしてる？みんなのこと騙してきたから罪悪感に苛まれちゃってるとか？まあそんなこと気にしなくてもいいのに。だって翔ちゃんがエリック・ビンゲルさんを騙さなかったらココもタケピョンも助からなかったんだよ。翔ちゃんは命の恩人さんなんだよ。みんなにももうそのことは説明してあるんだし、感謝する人はいても翔ちゃんのことを褒める人なんて誰もいないんだ。
そうかな。
そうだよ。ほらだから早く早く。みんな翔ちゃんの少年レインの歌が聴きたいって言って待ってるんだから。仮面ぼ呼吸なんだから。その後みんなでひよこごっこ大会することになってるんだから。
Coco was laughing. The smile that I had waited 17 years to see was shining right in front of me. Sora Kanegasaki. The smile that I waited 17 years to see was shining right in front of me. It made me dizzy to look at it. An electronic rhythm pulsed through my body to excessive voltage, throwing my logic circuits out of order. It was a pain that I had experienced before.
なあソラ。おいソラ。ほらちゃんと聞いてるのか人の話。
何でしたっけ？
これだよこれピピ。いきなり動かなくなっちゃったからさ調べてもらおうと思って。
Takeshi lifted up Pee-Pee and stuck him out in front of me.
いきなりですか？何か考えられる原因は？
ある。つぐみがな突然船室の中で暴れ始めて、俺はあいつを組み伏せようとしたんだけど逆に弾き飛ばされちゃって、で尻餅をついたところにピピがいて。
ピピの上に乗っかってしまったということですか？
ああ、そしたら動かなくなってしまい。
ちょっと貸してください。
I took Pee-Pee from Takeshi and started a diagnostic on
お
him.
かしいですね。どこにも異常は見当たらないようですけど、おそらくバッテリー切れではないでしょうか。
そっか。よかったよかった。俺が壊したなんて言ったらココだけじゃなくユウにもユウの娘にも恨まれるだろうからな。
私だって恨みますよ。
Upset that he hadn't included me, I continued.
私もピピには愛着を持っているのです、いいえ、愛着などという言葉では言い表せないぐらい私とピピは深いところで通じ合っているのです。そもそも今から17年前、ピピが海の底に潜ってテラバイトディスクを拾ってこなかったら今の私は存在していないのですから。そして洋上に浮かび上がったピピを田中さん、優美星はるかなさんのことですが、彼女がピピを回収しディスクに記録されたデータを私の中にコピーして、だからこそ今の私は17年前に皆さんと過ごした記憶や自我やそういったものを保っていられるのです。その後ピピは田中さんに引き取られ、それ以来ずっと今日まで田中家の一員として可愛がられてきました。つまりピピは私たちにとってなくてはならない存在だということです。このことはすでに倉成さんにはお話ししたはずですが。
ああ、確かに聞いたよ。そうだったな。でもだからってそんなにムキにならなくてもいいじゃないか。とにかくピピは壊れてなかったわけだし、それでいいだろ。
Takeshi laughed pleasantly. I can't fight it. The smile always disarmed me. It was as bright as the sun and powerfully magnetic. He could charm me effortlessly. It isn't fair. That smile should be outlawed,
ところで
Takeshi.
さ、一つ聞いてもいいかな。
なんでしょう。
I looked away and tried desperately to gain control of my wildly racing mind so that he would
ひょっとしたら失礼に当たるかもしれないんだけど、
not see through to my true feelings.
そのなんというか、空の体についてなんだ。
体ですか？
ああ、俺が見た感じだと今の空は人間と全く変わらないような肌の質感をしてるし、仕草とか佇まいとかそういうのもすごく自然で
失礼でも何でもないじゃないですか。むしろ今のは褒め言葉ですよ。ありがとうございます。それで質問というのは？
いや、だからその空の体は一体どんな仕組みになってるのかと思って。
不思議ですか？
うん、不思議だ。不思議だと思うと同時に嬉しかったりもするんだけどな。だってほら、こんな風に触れるようになったから。
As he said that, Takeshi put his hand on my cheek. It burned. A lump, hot and boiling, ran from my stomach to my brain. My generator was burning too much energy, frying my processor. My logic circuits shut down.
倉成さん。
Holding Pete firmly to my chest, I grabbed onto Takeshi's palm with my free hand. We're actually touching each other. We can touch each other, really touch each other. I had waited these 17 years for just this moment.
どうしたんだよ、空。酒でも飲んだのか？顔が真っ赤だぞ。
倉成先生。
なんだね、茜ヶ崎君。
世の中には不思議なことがたくさんあるのですね。先生は私の体のことをお尋ねになったでしょ。私がどうして実体を持つようになったのか疑問をお感じになったのでしょ。
うん。
その答えはたった一つです。これは奇跡なんだと思います。
奇跡？
はい、女神アフロディーテの奇跡です。
Takeshi looked straight into my eyes and blinked. He opened his eyes wide with a start and said,
ピグマリオンか。
I slowly, quietly nodded. Just then, in came the girl with boundless energy, Coco. I quickly let go of Takeshi's hands.
ピピにかけなかったっていうか、トラさん持ってんじゃん。ええ、だけどピピ、今バッテリーが切れてるみたいですよ。
And saying that, I handed Pee-Pee over to Coco.
バッテリー切れ？そんなはずないよ。だってさっき充電したばっかりだもん。
Coco held Pee-Pee between both her hands and started shaking him left to right. He wasn't rechargeable kinetically, so that shouldn't have done anything for him, but I exclaimed this without thinking as I realized something. Coco and Takeshi both turned to stare at me.
分かっちゃいましたよ。原因
原因？
スイッチですよ。ただ単にスイッチが切れているだけなんだと思います。
Coco lifted Pee-Pee up above her. There was a button in his navel.
いいですか？行きますよ。
I stuck out my finger and zeroed in on his belly button. And
ポチッとな。
I firmly pushed the button. His motor started to run, and I could hear the faint sound of something oscillating. Pee-Pee's eyes came to life.
お礼なんかいいですよ。私はただボタンを押しただけなんですから。
Just then, Takeshi broke out in laughter.
そうかそうか。そら覚えててくれたんだな。
I smiled from the bottom of my heart and nodded. The world is full of strange and wonderful things, isn't it? Discussion about Pygmalion and Keep It Simple. Neither of those should have been on my terabyte disk. Pee-Pee left from Coco's arms. And wagging his tail fitfully, he raced across the deck. Making a racket, Coco chased after him. The deck was overflowing with quiet sunlight and cheerful laughter. Looking up, there was the sky. The blue sky that continued without end, stretching out in all directions. Coco Yakami. I was chasing after Pee-Pee. I didn't know why, but that's what I was doing. It was probably just something fun to do. Pee-Pee ran across the surface of the deck like he was flying. Suddenly, Pee-Pee stopped. Just when I thought he wasn't running anymore, he looked up to the sky and started barking at something.
鳥かなんかいるの？
I lifted him up. Still, he wouldn't stop barking, so I followed his gaze and looked up into the sky. And there it was. Right in front of my eyes floated the outline of my brother, who I loved dearly. Well, it wasn't something I had seen, rather I'm seeing right now. Right now, at this moment, Coco is looking at you. She cries out suddenly with an elated expression.
ちょっとこっち来て。こっちこっち。ほら、早く早く。
The first people to arrive are Hokutan and Sugumi.
どうしたの？
何かあった？あれあれ、見てよ、あそこ。
Coco points at you. She wanted to tell everyone that you've arrived. Sugumi takes off her hat and squints her eyes against the sunlight. Hokutan is...
あ、本当だ。また来てくれたんだね。
A smile covers his whole face and he jumps to her eyes if he will start to dance. Next, Takeshi shows up.
あ、なんかいるのか？
Mayo jumps up. Up on Takepion's back. And soon everyone shows up one by one. Sora, Naki's daughter.
どうしたんですか、田中さん。いいからいいから、早く早く。
And Nakyu, kiddo.
彼ね。
The boat is suddenly crowded with excitement. Coco is waving her arms wildly, hoping, praying.
どうかこの思いがお兄ちゃんに届きますように。 そして再びお兄ちゃんに巡り会う時が訪れますように。
Right then, Coco, was looking at my brother. Right then, I was looking at the world where Coco existed. Looking down on it with both my eyes, I was sure of it. If the moon is only there because of your belief that it will be there when you look at it, then it was possible that I am here and they are here, only because we believe that we are. The world is here now. I am here looking at the world. I am here looking at myself, looking at the world. How far do I go? I don't know the answer. But there are some things I am sure of. I am seeing now. I am being seen now. You are seeing now. And you are surely being seen by someone. And save. Okay, that's all of Coco's route. It's not over yet, there's still a little bit left. Bye.